Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Alfa Art Gallery's Meet the Artist series. My name is Petra Welchins, and I am excited to be interviewing the artist Chanelle René, who will be exhibiting her work in the New Brunswick Art Salon Oil Sculpture and Mixed Media exhibition. Her work examines identity and representation by reclaiming space through her impressive portfolio of mixed media artworks. Today, we will explore how her art came to be, her artistic process, and some of her pieces that will be on display here at Alpha Art Gallery. Welcome, Chanelle. I'm so excited to speak with you. How are you today?
I'm great, Petra. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
Of course. The first question that we have for you today is in regards to how your career as an artist began. So we saw on your website that you actually had a 20-year career in marketing before you even began painting, and that you began over the pandemic in 2020. How did the pandemic inspire you to start painting? And do you think you would have made the transition from marketing to painting if it weren't for this time, I guess?
It's so interesting. Leading up to the pandemic, working in marketing, I was just feeling disconnected and not really happy with the work that I was doing. So I started to do what I call creative exploring. I dabbled in fiber arts, jewelry making, even pottery. I soon discovered painting as the thing that I was like, okay, I'm really interested in this and I want to kind of expand into that. So this is like 2018 or so fairly close to 2020. Um, so I was just like trying to learn some things. I'm a self-taught artist, so just kind of figuring things out. And then in 2020, I really had the space to create, and I just put all my energy into painting, particularly faces. So I would definitely say that without the pandemic, I probably wouldn't be the artist that I am today.
Thank you. Yes, that's wonderful to hear, especially because I think it's often hard to gain the confidence to switch so late, or not even late, but just generally in your career or just with even your hobbies. So that's very impressive. And it's impressive to be self-taught too, because it's impressive and challenging to try new materials when you're not exactly sure what will stick and what will work. And so it's honestly takes a lot of confidence. Very admirable. Speaking further on your influences from marketing, do you think marketing influences your subject matter or the intentions of your art? And how would you say that this does affect it?
Well, my figurative work explores female identity through the lens of Black culture and the essence of just being your true self and also reclaiming spaces. So I would say it's kind of a complete departure of my former marketing career. However, the skills that I've learned over the 20 years have been so helpful in how I talk about my art and share my art both in person and online.
I guess another question then in relation to that is, do you think your experience in marketing is what really allows you to relate and engage with this familiarity in your art that is, I feel like resonates so well with other people?
Um, I could kind of see that. I feel from that lens of kind of relating to an audience and being able to speak to them in terms of working in marketing, but also I feel that also shows up in the work that I create. I feel like I'm creating for someone who wants to be seen and represented, and there's different ways that can be achieved. So I definitely feel that the art and the paintings that I create can connect to those who want to be more fully in touch with their own emotions and also self-representation.
Wonderful, yes. And then also to ask the next question, your art combines several forms of media, such as acrylic oil spray paint, colored pencil, metal leaf, and texture marker. As a self-taught artist, how did you discover and learn how to apply and use all these different mediums? And how do you think the materials that you use impact or affect the meaning of your artwork?
That's a great question. A lot of people assume that when you're a self-taught artist that you just woke up one day and you start painting and it looks great and you know what you're doing, and that's furthest from the truth, at least in my instance. As I knew that painting was something I wanted to do more of, I took a lot of courses, and especially during the pandemic, they were a lot of them were online, but I picked up different techniques and how to use different materials. But eventually I got to the point is I was trying to go to this course and that course. And then I realized I just needed to have like one cohesive experience that taught me all of those things. So I did enroll in a program where I learned everything from drawing basics to painting in mixed media. So that's really where I had the opportunity to try out all these different mediums and experiment and play, which I feel that's kind of where you truly learn what you enjoy working in and also aligns with what you want to express. I feel for me that those mediums that you mentioned, like the acrylics and the spray paint and all those other materials, really speak to me because they always became things I naturally went to. Like, oh, let's add some reflective qualities. So picking up the gold leaf, really love spray paint the way that it has this like softness to it. So that's why I use that. And then just kind of contrasting with some of the other elements of the brush work of the acrylics, and then also just having like movement with the pencil line and things like that. And I just love how all those mediums come together. And I would say for the oils, it's just so lush. And I just love working with those. And I typically use those for my figure work on top of those layers.
The reason why I came up with this question is because I just love the way that you mix your different medias, especially what you were talking about, where you can tell that you have innate sense in where you want different things to go and how you want it to feel and move. And I just think that's so cool. And I think it relates to the next question that I want to talk about and ask you about too, because you talk about how you begin your painting process with an abstraction as the base, and then sometimes you build figurally on top of that. Can you describe what this looks like when you're painting? And does it reflect more of like a process of controlling maybe the like unknown and like a chaotic sort of sense, or is it rather like a discovery of what's hidden in the unknown when you're creating figures out of these abstractions?
That's so interesting because it's kind of a mix of both. It's like the chaos, but yet discovery. Because the only thing that I truly know when I approach my abstracts is the color story. I like to know, like, I'm going to work with these colors and build on top of that. And like I said, I have my go-tos of, the acrylics and the spray paint, and I kind of know when I'm about to add those things. But other than that, I don't have a game plan. I don't know that there's going to be a markup here. You know what I mean? It's like I truly invite the process to unfold inside of me, which is kind of difficult because I do kind of like to know what I'm doing. So it kind of stretches me out of my comfort zone to create something that is truly from within. So yeah, I mean, again, I do know that I love to start with the acrylics. I lay down the colors, blending, and then I allow it to dry, and then I start to build on top of that so that each layer is kind of their own individual aspect, but then at the end, they come together like beautifully, like in a ways that I can't even imagine. So it's kind of like that chaos, but also that discovery of the process of fully becoming that background. I know that there are some stages in the process that I look at it and I say, oh, wow, this is horrible. Or like, where is this going? And then I just trust the process. I trust myself and I keep going. And I just, at that point, I just know I'm not done. So that is, and then when I feel like, okay, I'm done, now it's ready for that figurative subject on top. So,
That's amazing. That also brings me to, I guess, another sub question that I haven't written down, but I'm kind of curious. When you are painting in your studio, do you have like a set time that you paint where you start and you stop every day? Or, and also when you do paint, do you listen to music or is it completely silent? And what kind of, I guess, inspires you when you're going at it?
yes. I love to paint in the morning or get started in the morning. I paint in the sunroom of my home, so I get a lot of natural light, that's how I prefer to create. So as it gets dark, and if I need to turn on a light, then it's definitely, unless I'm like truly up against a deadline, that's when I know it's time to stop painting. And I also feel like I have that freshness and energy to create. For me, I just like I it's like a whole morning practice. I bring in my cup of tea. I like matcha tea, but I also like chai tea. And, I like candles and just kind of create just this environment where it just feels good to be in the studio. And then it's like, what am I doing today? Am I starting a new piece? Is it a continuation of another piece? Um, I just really like to create that inviting experience so that it's welcoming to me and allows creativity to flow. Sometimes I listen to music, but a lot of times if I listen to music, it gets me out of painting and I want to dance. And like, there's nothing against dancing, but like, I need to focus on painting or I like sing with the song and it like kind of gets me out of that creative mode. So if I do listen to music, it's a lot of like lo-fi, no lyrics or anything like that. So,
That's fair, yes. Gotta keep remained in the zone sometimes.
yes.
Perhaps also that's why a lot of your work is so inviting in itself because you make such a warm environment when you're painting. Uh, to ask the next question then, the artworks from your submissions feature portraits, abstractions, still lifes, and interiors, yet they all share, as we mentioned before, an engaging familiarity. For example, two of the paintings that you submitted, Yearning and Beautiful Mess, are portraits that pair a female central figure with beautiful, vibrant flowers. I've also noticed that you've hosted immersive workshops for both painting and flower arranging. And so I was wondering, what do flowers represent in these two paintings? And does it relate to your incorporations of flowers in your community engaging workshop?
Mm, I love that. It's interesting. I was recently looking at my work and noticing like this continuation of flower. Like, of course, people see me and they see portraits and figures, but I was noticing, I'm like, oh, I've been incorporating flowers in my work for a while. And for me, it's all about like renewal and growth, but also like dormancy. And, flowers typically bloom in the spring and summer and then die off or retreat in the fall and winter. So it's kind of like the cycle of becoming and then also the cycle of going within and reflection and building and kind of reflecting on what you want to do next. So when you bloom again, you have a different focus. And also, particularly, I've come to have a connection specifically with the lotus flower. I'm not sure if you're familiar with its growth cycle, but it grows out of muddy waters and it takes all that muck and it emerges into this beautiful bloom. And each evening, it also retreats back. So I kind of love that cycle in terms of it's the same seasonal cycle, but it's their growth cycle that it's while they're in season, they do this every day, which I found that to be very interesting. And particularly lotus flowers are also showing up in my work. Um, and as far as the workshops, when I started to do art and do things where I'm engaging with the community and as I consider my departure from marketing, I wanted to make sure that I was still doing things that I enjoyed or I connected with or had it resonated. So it was one of those things of like, hey, let's do a workshop around flowers and creating like an experience as well, not just the painting, but how being in that environment of a flower garden makes you feel, and then conveying that onto canvas.
Wow. Yes, that's lovely. That's beautiful. That was more than I was even expecting. That's yeah, I love that idea of regrowth and like that's just so beautiful. That makes a lot of sense too, especially in the portraits because a lot of the both of the women, I think, they look powerful and strong, like they've gone through something or they've just been in life and they're looking it in the face and they're ready for like, I guess, a new beginning, which is quite lovely. Which brings me to the next question about two more of your paintings, which are slightly more abstracted, from stars to stardust and glow up. And both of these paintings feature, as I mentioned before, abstractions in the form of bold lines, shapes, and textures that surround central faces. And so I noticed that in both these faces, there's extreme detail in certain features like the eyes. And so in one of the interviews you did for CBS Philadelphia for your Pure Essence exhibition, you mentioned that eyes and hair are some of your favorite things to paint because they reveal so much about identity and they really give people a place and representation in different forms of media, such as your fine art. And so I was wondering, in the two paintings from stars to stardust and glow up, how does that abstraction relate to the eyes? And then I was also wondering too, is the abstraction perhaps supposed to be hair, or is it supposed to be something else, like just an essence, or
Yeah, so for those paintings, I was really focused on the emotion, but also the gaze as well. Like, there's as far as rendering the face, as you mentioned, it's really focused and locked in on the key features of the face, and particularly the eyes. And I feel that our eyes communicate so much without saying anything. And that's really what those paintings are about. As far as the abstraction, it's more about that inner emotion, and that's why a lot of my paintings have kind of those swirling motions, and those paintings really go out as far as that abstraction and emotional quality. I always feel that whether we're happy or sad or going through something, there's still that other side. So, for example, if you are sad, there's still a glimmer of hope. And if you're happy, there might be some anxiety or something else in that space as well. We're never 100% of any emotion. And that's really what is happening in those paintings. You're seeing all the ranges of emotion that are swirling around the person. It's kind of what's happening internally, but I'm allowing you to see that on the canvas. So in those particular paintings, those abstractions are more about those inner emotions, and the eyes looking and kind of like claiming their own space, and each of those paintings, from Star to Stardust and Glow Up, they, while the eyes are the focus, they're both saying completely different things. I feel like the Glow Up gaze is more like direct and presence and like I'm here, as well as, and then the Star to Stardust is a little more I'm here, but it's a little softer or maybe retrospective, like there's something a little deeper happening here. So.
yes, that's wonderful. And the way that they, I think, attract the viewer with the gaze is what makes it really, really work, where you're focused in on looking in and then you see all of these swirling around. It's so engaging. And so I think that's wonderful. So the next question is about your two paintings, the still lives, Matcha and Tarot and Bits and Pieces. And they feature two different scenes. Matcha and tarot engages the viewers because it's kind of as if we are above the tarot cards gazing down, as if we're about to do them or if we're getting the reading. And I was wondering, what inspired this subject matter and what inspired these objects that you selected, and do they have to do with your daily life?
These two paintings are the most personal to date. They reflect me personally in these paintings. So, first of all, the objects that you see are true. I created these still lives from objects that I actually own. I have my own tarot card deck. The lotus that's in there is actually a ceramic piece that I created, and I laid all these things out. Well, I was actually living this experience. And as I was doing it, I thought, wow, this would make a great painting. So in the process of doing it, took photographs, and was like, I'm going to paint this. So, and then that extension of the tablescape scene, I also wanted to bring that environment of, for the viewer, a peek into what it's like for a slow Sunday morning, and you're sipping on matcha tea and you're just doing tarot. And so for those pieces, I took photographs of myself and the tablescape and objects. And there was a little, like, I don't want to use the word orchestrating, but there was a little like directing of how I imagined the painting to be. Um, but even though they're my personal objects and I use myself as the photographic reference, I never say it's an artist's self-portrait. I still want it to be the concept that it could be any woman that can identify with any aspect of that experience. So while it is from myself, I don't want to just say this is how I experience the world and it doesn't connect to anyone else, because I feel it's important for my work to connect um, with other people. So yeah.
Hmm. Yes, definitely. It's the feeling of the relaxing Sunday morning, the morning ritual that you were talking about. It's kind of like everyone can ha relate to that experience at least, even if it's not with the same type of objects and such. So that's wonderful. Continuing on the idea of these paintings engaging with the viewer and being familiar to the viewer, never waiting in clarity are both slightly larger than the other paintings I noticed, measuring 40 by 30 inches instead of 30 by 24. And they also both offer a view into walled rooms, as if we, as the viewer, are in the corner of the room and invited into the space that the central figures occupy. I was wondering, is the increased scale meant to accentuate perhaps this sense of being in the room and this engagement, or is it a coincidence? And also, what is the purpose of seemingly placing the viewer inside the room?
Hmm. So generally, I love painting large. It allows me to move from my body. Think gestural strokes where it's like I'm moving from my full arm, not just like, like this. And although I did create studies of interiors and figures, and I was able to create kind of that impressionistic mark making and freeness and expressiveness. It truly came alive for me when I decided, okay, we're going to go large with these particular pieces. And it just felt right. And I felt that it conveyed what I wanted to, of making it like an immersive environment that, yes, the viewer can, in a way, step into, whether through their imagination or just viewing it. Yeah, and again, these are pieces that I'm the subject of these pieces. So it's my bedroom, and I took photographs of me in the bed, and kind of again about that emotion of like being in the space and what that's like, and just kind of gazing. And it's like the idea of that I have it like never waiting, but it's like it looks as if I'm waiting, but it's the concept. It's like no, it's like I'm waiting for no one. It's like I'm comfortable in my own skin and I'm experiencing nature looking out. Like there's nothing that I'm waiting for. So that's what I love about that piece. And again, you'll see those emotional brushstrokes that kind of convey the emotion. So it's like you're in a room, but it's a little bit like, well, it doesn't really look like a natural setting, and that's intentional. Again, communicating that emotion.
Yeah, I notice even when I look at the paintings, those two particularly online, they just feel so engaging and it's almost like you feel still in the moment, like the air is still in the room. However, it's contrasted by these beautiful like moving brush strokes and it's just like it's lovely. I love those two. That's I guess a side note. But I guess that's the end of my assigned or the questions that I wrote. So thank you so much for all of your insight and your beautiful submissions, of course. And if there's anything else that you would like to finish the interview with off to like let the people know before they come to the exhibition, please feel free to do so.
Well, first off, thank you, Petra, for having me. I feel that these works that will be in the exhibition are a evolution, to speak, on how I approach figurative work, from the portraits that are surrounded by emotion to these full interior environments where the figure has the space to kind of simply be. Um, I invite visitors coming to the exhibit to view the works and connect with their own emotion and how living with these pieces can bring them closer to their truest self.
That's lovely. I love that. I hope everyone gets to come and see it.
I'm so excited. Thanks so much for having me
I'm
for
so
the
excited.
exhibition, and I'm excited for the show. Absolutely.